Checking if we are live. I'm gonna float the video for a few minutes, hopefully seconds, and see if folks are finally online. We haven't been online for almost a year, and so I decided to say, okay, let's do a live because I've been missing the interaction with folks, and today and tomorrow are going to be relatively light days for us. So we said, let's do a discussion about one of your favorite topics of all time, and that would be quitting or resigning. So let's see. Let me just first check because I have lots of equipment happening at the same time. We're live on LinkedIn. We're also live on Facebook. We're also live on YouTube and also on TikTok. And I'm so scared ridiculously on TikTok because the filter is just something that I can't mix. It just horribly makes you too good looking. I will say that. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I think some people are already online. Could you please give us a thumbs up or exclamation mark or hello and hi? Tell me your city, tell me your age, your industry, and also your company. Just type it in and we'll give you some shout outs before we start. Remember, again, our discussion for today is going to be about quitting. It's going to be about resigning from your job. It could be because you had an issue with your boss, you're not satisfied with what you're doing, or it could be you finally found a better company, or you are planning to enter the entrepreneurship world. Okay, so I'm looking at the chat box. There you go. Finally, there you go. Finally seeing some folks. So I have folks from Facebook, for example. I have San, May, Jerome, Dulce. Dulce is working as a nurse from UK. My mom's a nurse, by the way. Also, Abigail from Texas in Qatar. Okay, Joseph from Cebu City. I have folks also on TikTok. I have Junie, Jassy, Rose Pink, Alize. Okay, Amira is also coming from LinkedIn. And then I also have Fakrudin from Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. Amira is also from Malaysia. I so miss Malaysia. I was in Kota Kinabalu a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, I got food poison. I'm not sure if it was something that I ate, but you know how I love Malaysian food. I'm a big fan of all the noodles, 24/7 mamaks and all these things. Okay, so I think I don't want to, prolong the entire introduction. I'm going to ask the participants now to please start typing your questions. Now, I've asked some of you to type your questions in advance, and I was able to gather some of them via email. So I collected some of the most popular questions and will be raising them today. Okay, so I don't want to. The reason why I didn't have much inspiration to do a lot of talks online is because I needed to prepare so many slides. This time, I don't want to prepare any slides. I just want everything to be come and go. If you have a question, type it. I'll read it. We'll answer it, and I'll read some of your comments. Okay? So I have some questions that I'd like to read, but I do have some questions now in the chat box as well, which I think are fitting to read. So Nick Nunez, let's show this. So the question here, hi Jonathan, is it okay to accept counter offers? Would it be detrimental later on? I've made a TikTok video about this, and I think it's one of our most popular videos. I will answer this in two ways. One is my personal opinion, which means I'm going to be biased. And number two is an objective answer, giving you both the pros and cons. So personal bias first, I am not a big fan of getting counter offers. And the reason for that is because if you've been asking something from the longest time and the company never gave it to you, why does it take a resignation for them to be triggered, for them to give it? They should have considered it, or they should have at least asked you about it before. Number two, I think that if you successfully got the counter offer and you went back to the company, the relationship will never be the same way again. What do I mean? Number one, you're not going to be trusted the same way again by your teammates. You're always going to be seen as that person. He's that guy who asked for a counter offer. He's that guy who was able to magically increase his salary by threatening that he will leave the company. It will also foster insecurity among your teammates. It will start making them think that they can also do the same thing. So it does, for me, trigger a lot of issues within the organization, within the team. And I also think that your manager will feel betrayed that you wanted to leave and you only went back because money was hanging on the door. So I would not take the counter offer. Uh, the objective answer here is I would take the counter offer, on the other hand, if all of the promises that you have laid out on the negotiation table are going to be fulfilled. So let's say, for example, you wanted to leave the company because you have an issue with your boss. Your request is, can I be transferred to a different department? Or you had an issue with your boss and your boss promised to you that they will change their habits, whatever that issue is. I need a good amount of assurance that they really are going to change, because even if you get a counter offer, but the issues remain to be the same. You don't like your boss, you don't like the workload, culture is ridiculously horrible, people don't respect each other, people go home so late. What's the point of getting this amount of money if you will still be burdened with a lot of things? My experience is that all of these promises are not usually fulfilled. The money is the band-aid solution. And then after a few months, people go back to their old ways. And then you go back being sad. And you go back being disappointed again to what happened in the company. So I think you already have an idea of my bias here. I would not take that counter offer. I would rather move on to a different company who I think is going to turn me into a rock star. And again, please remember that everything is a gamble in life. When you risk moving to a different and greener pasture, you're not 100% sure if everything that they said during the job interview are going to be fulfilled. So consider that as well. Okay. All right. From TikTok, Marge here has a question. Marge is saying, what if the counter offer was a promotion? Okay. So Marge, this is a very interesting question. First and foremost, before you even ask for a counter offer, were you already eligible for a promotion? And the idea of being eligible is that you probably were able to tick the boxes, competencies, behaviors, leadership skills. You're always performing. You're above your sales target. You're above the budget, whatever your metrics are. Again, I'm going to go back to the same question. Why is it that it needed a resignation trigger for you to get promoted? If you really are worth the promotion, and if you really deserve the promotion, you should have been promoted in the first place. That for me is a red flag. If the company needs to be threatened just for them to do the right thing, just for them to do the fair thing, then it means that this company needs to be forced to the extreme level just to do the basic things that a good company would rather do. Okay? So it will go along the same lines that I've mentioned a while ago. Okay, let's look. Wow, lots of questions from participants. Okay, let's choose one more here. Ooh, I like this question from Jeffrey. How do I know if I am staying way too long in one company? Okay. I'm going to attack these questions into two parts. Number one, this question assumes that you should be moving from one company to another. This question assumes that you're supposed to be not contented with only one company. Because I'm also going to say this, even if I'm the type of person who thinks that you should capture as many experiences as you can, I've also learned along my journey by meeting people who had jobs. It was their first job after they finished university or vocational school. It remains to be their only job because they're happy, because they're learning a lot, because they have a manager and a team who loves them and who treats them well. So if you are happy growing personally and professionally in a job, I don't think there's a reason for you to move. There is no such thing as staying too long. I'll give an example. One of my good friends, and her name is Mabel, and she works for a pharmaceutical company I worked before. It was her first job. Right after she finished school, it remains to be her same job. And she's now 38 years old. She's been in the company for more than, I think, more than 15 years now. Okay. So if you're able to tick off the boxes, you're happy, you're growing, you're doing well, you're earning the amount of salary that gives you the good quality of life, I think there's no reason for you to move. I'm going to answer the second level of attack now. And that is, if you're not ticking all the boxes, when is the right time to move? I'm going to say the opposite thing. I think you should move if, number one, more than anything else, you are not being respected in the organization, so much so that even your mental and physical health is getting affected. So for me, the non-negotiable parts of a very toxic company is cursing is so normal amongst each and everyone. People can backstab you. People can suddenly copy each other in emails. People keep on blaming each other, even if it's not your fault. People pass on their job to others. This is the kind of job that, for me, no questions asked, I would leave. And the reason for that is because it's not just even anymore about the money, it's about how it's affecting how I see myself. Companies are supposed to make you grow professionally and personally. So this would be the first on top of my list. Number two, if you happen to be stagnating for the longest time, meaning you're very good in what you do, you have a lot of praises from other folks in the company, your vendors, your third party agencies, all of them all believe that you're doing so well. But it's been 5 years, it's been 7 years, it's been 8 years, you're still not promoted, and you've been vocal about it. And the company keeps on saying, sorry, we can't promote you because we have no space, we have no budget, or because there's no opportunity. Then I think you're rotting yourself in that company. You deserve to move to another company where you can enjoy a bigger role, expand your capacity, and also eventually earn more money, because we do work so we can live. So if I were to give you a number, if you've been doing so well, 2 to 3 years is the average amount of time to get promoted, especially when you're younger. The more senior the position is, sometimes from being a manager to being a director, it can take 7 to 10 years. If you're still not taking off that specific timeline, and this is a general number for most industries, I think it's high time that you can move on. And this is the reason why some people decide to also move on. So Jeffrey, I hope I'm able to answer your question. I hope the first answer was the more resounding answer, right? Because I don't think you should move if there's no reason to move. Life is a buffet. I get that. You should keep on eating different things in the buffet table. But I also don't see anything wrong if you're happy with what you're currently eating. Okay? All right. Let's look at some more. Oh, guys, you guys have a lot of questions. I'll find a way to answer all of them. Okay? Let's look at one more. Can I just answer this? This one, I'm a bit bothered by this question. I attended a recent leadership training. Sino speaker nito? Who's the speaker behind this? And there's a quote that says, there is no such thing as a bad leader, which for me is an oxymoron, because leaders are supposed to possess good qualities in the first place. If you don't have them, you don't deserve to be called as a leader, right? My question is, if the issue of management or boss is due to unfair biases, then would it be a valid reason to resign? Okay, I think this answer is gonna answer a lot of the questions in the chat box, and that is, more than anything else, when you find a reason to quit, always ask yourself 3 things. Number one, have I exhausted all means to resolve it? Have I talked to the people? Have I consulted my friends and colleagues who know me well? Have I looked at the guidelines and the policies of the company? And even if you've done all of these things and your problem is still not resolved, then it's a check. It's a good, considerable cause for you to leave, because nothing's going to happen about it, right? So that's one. Number two is, if the situation only happened once, but it triggered you that you want to resign, please manage your emotions, because if it only happens once, maybe twice, right? It could be a simple aberration. It could be a simple exemption to the rule. Things might improve later on, or you just happen to have an unlucky day, and that you should not be basing your entire career on that one unlucky day. Okay, I'll give an example. This happened to one of my colleagues. She was hired and she entered at the time that it was budget season. And you know how budget season is. Everyone is just, doing a lot of meetings, a lot of reports, a lot of presentations via PowerPoint and spreadsheets. So people were not as nice to each other. People were trying to get things done quickly. People were staying in the office until 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. And this usually happens for 1 month or maybe 2 months. So when she entered the company, her first impression was that, is this the company that I'm going to work for the rest of my life? And it triggered her to want to leave. And when she consulted me about it, I said, I understand your feelings. It's totally reasonable to feel that way. But I also think that budget seasons are very normal in most organizations, and they can be one of the worst seasons of the year. But I also want you to flip the coin such that after 1 month, try to feel how the people are, how the organization is after the budget season is done. Do people change? Do timelines change? Does the culture become better? And when you realize that this is more of an aberration than the rule, then your decision originally was triggered by emotion, not by pure rationale. So, second ticking of the box, never be triggered easily. And I think I need to highlight this. This is my personal opinion, but I think the youngsters of today have a tendency to think that the moment that they feel triggered, they always raise the mental wellness card. And I'm not a big fan of that. Mental wellness is so important. I get it. But we also have to draw the line between, do you really have mental wellness issue now? Or is it just because your standards are so low such that every simple issue, you blow it up as if it's the grandest issue of all time? Such that you might need to practice more patience, more understanding, and also a higher threshold for pain if pain is going to be necessary for certain parts of our career. Because let's face it, it's not an easy walk in the park. There will be nights and there will be certain weekends that we might need to move beyond the usual. As long as you're not doing it on a daily basis, I think certain sacrifices are inevitable when you want to climb the corporate ladder. So I'm going to make that quick exemptions, by the way. If you're watching this webinar and your mindset immediately is, Jonathan always talks about being the better version of yourself. When does it stop? It does stop. Eventually, athletes and CEOs do retire. My point is, while you're still in the middle of your stage, I think you need to question yourself if you're applying mediocrity or if you're applying the question, can I be a better version? Sitius, Altius, Fortius. That's your Olympic motto. Can I be faster, higher, and stronger? Because the point of life is to maximize what you're given with, what you're blessed with in the first place. So those two things. If you've exhausted all means, that's the first one. And that number two, consider that it might be an issue of time. It might be an issue of being an exemption to the rule rather than being the rule itself. Okay. And by the way, I think it's ridiculous to just dismiss after 2 weeks or 1 month that you should immediately leave a company. You haven't yet experienced all facets of the organization, how they conduct meetings, how deadlines are met, how people work with each other. You don't experience all of these things in just weeks, sometimes not even months. Okay? Of course, someone in the chat box is going to tell me again, if it's really managing my mental health, I should leave. Fine, I'll give that to you. But you have to impose standards that are fair. I don't want you to be triggered thinking, just because someone called you out in an email, it triggers you to resign, right? That's not a mental health issue. That's an issue of being irritative easily. And that is not something that you want to build as a habit over time as you get along. Because life is like that. There are going to be problems in life, right? There are going to be difficult people that you work with. If your mindset is that I'm going to quit every time I meet that person, you will not be able to climb and you will not be able to progress, assuming that you want to progress. Okay? All right. Let's look at some more, folks. Wow, we guys are really swamped with a lot of questions here. Okay, I'm trying to choose questions that are not redundant so that they're more unique questions. I think some questions have been answered by other similar questions we've raised a while ago. Ooh, I like this one. This is a very controversial one. So from Jerome, this is from Facebook. He says, I recently declined the promotion that my boss is offering me. And by the way, yes, technically you can decline a promotion if you want, because a promotion is an assignment of an expansion of someone's role. Okay. After that, some of my colleagues judged me for doing that. Now I passed a letter of intent for transfer to a different department that I believe my strengths are aligned with. Should I resign if they do not allow my transfer? Okay, this is a really tricky one. Okay, and I like a challenge. So I'll answer this question. Two things. Number one, I'm going to applaud you first because if you do think that the promotion is not going to be good for you, then it means that you have a high level of self awareness. Okay, so you have all the rights to do that, do so. I will flip the table, however. I do think, however, sometimes that internally we think we can't get the job done. But the moment we start doing the job and we learn more as we do the job, we realize that we are actually capable of doing the job. So I'm just going to throw that into the air, Jerome, for you to consider that maybe you backed out too easily from this promotion offer. Now, I don't know the entire situation. I don't know the entire story. But if you really backed out because you don't think that this is something that you can accomplish, then moving on to a different department that will align with your strengths is a good strategy. So the question now is, what if they decline and I remain to be in the same organization, in the same team? So you have to now look at two things. Number one, when you say that your colleagues are judging you, to what extent is that damaging your performance? If it's just an issue of people judging you because they make some snide comments or remarks, I think it will pass for a few weeks and that you can manage that eventually. Perhaps you can even explain to them why you declined the promotion. That could be an issue. That could be a solution to why they were judging you in the first place, right? Number two, I think that even if they declined your offer, there is still a potential for you to continue doing good in your job. We call this, by the way, in the corporate world as individual contributors or IC. So these are talents who do not want to get promoted, but they are keen to be excellent in what they do as individuals. And I know a lot of people like this. And from a manager's perspective, I think a great leader will respect the decision of an individual if they choose to become an individual contributor. So there are some people who want to become future managers and leaders. Some people don't. I will polish both types of people, which means I need to give them projects wherein they are good at execution, some level of strategy, but will not necessarily involve managing a bigger group of people. If your manager cannot understand that, for me, it's a sign that you may want to consider moving not just to a different department, perhaps it could also be a different company who believes in your philosophy that you choose to become an individual contributor. Now, before I end my tip, here's the tricky part. If you're moving to a different company, it's just not normal to tell the recruiter that when you get accepted in a job, you don't like to get promoted and that you prefer to be an individual contributor. And the reason for that is because usually they judge these talents as if their ambitions are to simply coast. And the trend in most organizations today is to treat individuals who have a tendency to be able to lead others, even if it's not a leadership role. So meaning you're not classified as a manager, but your ability to influence and coordinate with different teams and different departments, you have the leadership skills. So this is a dangerous water to tread because it's not like you're going to tell to the recruiter and say, hi, I'm applying for a job. I left my job because they were promoting me. I don't like to become promoted. I don't want an expanded role, right? These are things that you keep at bay. So just be mindful about that. And also, maybe it's an opportunity for you to reconsider. Getting promoted does not always mean that you have to manage a team. It can just simply mean expansion of your role. And it can also be managed by negotiating at the very start what exactly is the scope of the expansion. Okay. All right, Jerome, I hope I'm able to answer your question. Okay. Let's look at some more. Okay. I have one here from LinkedIn. John from LinkedIn says, what can you say about the type of leadership wherein the CEO's mindset is that everyone can be replaced? If he does not want you or you don't go, with the flow, even if though you are performing amazingly. You know, I always get this response from which industry? From the BPO industry. I'm not sure, John, if you're from the BPO industry, but I often get this comment from a lot of my TikTok videos and LinkedIn posts and says, you know, my manager's not like that because my manager keeps on saying, if you want to resign, go ahead and resign. You're going to be replaceable anyway. So two things. If I was a manager, I will never say that to my people, even if it may be my internal belief. I will keep it to myself. Why? It sends a message to your team that everyone is dispensable. Everyone can just move on because it's easy for us to hire more people. And by the way, from a from a basis of experience, it can be true in the BPO industry. Why? Because people come and go because there's a high demand for the job. So technically speaking, your manager is saying that not because they hate you, but because it's the truth. I do think, however, that from a leadership perspective, you shouldn't be bragging about that statement. It is a cause for disengagement. It is a reason why your people will continue to think, okay, if I'm replaceable anyway, then there's no reason for me to give my best. There's no reason for me to do good because any time of the year, I can be also fired and they can easily hire someone else. Okay. Okay, let's look at some more questions. Okay, we have lots. I wish I can capture. Okay, here's one. I am working as a nurse in a new company. It's a family-owned business of a well-known luxury car brands. Ooh, do I know this? No, most luxury car brands in the Philippines are. Let me just fix my hair. Are family-owned companies. It is not usual for the company nurse. It is not the usual company nurse task since this is a family business. I would assume, San, that you're given tasks that are outside your scope as a nurse. I think that's what you're trying to say here. You're given a lot of admin tasks and therefore you don't like it. I am starting to have issues with my manager because they keep asking me do things that I don't feel comfortable doing. Okay? I don't have the entire picture of what exactly do you mean by not being comfortable. Anyway, it feels martial law inside the company. Should I quit or am I just being culture shocked since I just joined this January? Okay, the fact that you've mentioned that is the culture shock something that I should first study is already a good thing because that means that you're not easily persuaded by your emotions. So I would like you to ask two things. Whatever it is that you feel uncomfortable to do. Number one, first question to ask is the ethics. Is this against your definition of what is good and what is bad? And if you're being asked to do things that you think should not be done by a decent human being, then I think that you should, never compromise your values. Of course, before you decide to quit, I would confront whoever the person is doing it and ask the reason, why is it that you're asking me to do it? And what exactly is the rationale behind you doing it? You can also explain your side and say, if I do X, potentially I can be Y. I can commit a crime. I am not comfortable doing X, Y, and Z because this is against the law, for example. So have that conversation also with the other person. If the person does not budge, I think you should not compromise your values. And again, while this is a very easy question to answer that you should quit, I personally think that if my values are not respected, I will never compromise it. I will not be able to sleep at night thinking that my salary is coming from an employer who does things that are against my ethics. Okay? So the second layer now is this. If there is no issue about ethics or your values or your morality, then that's where you can conclude it's just something that's strange to you. It's just something that you haven't done before, and that it's just a matter of being used to it, right? It's just a matter of knowing that in certain parts of the world, this is normal. It just so happens that in my part of the world, it isn't. So neither parties is right or wrong. It's a matter of adjusting. And this is normal, by the way. When you enter a new company, you will discover that they do things that you've never thought was possible to be done. Okay? And that will test your ability to be resilient. So resilience now becomes a skill that you need to sharpen. When this happens, I don't think that resignation is your immediate next step. I think you should give it more time. See if you can challenge yourself to be more comfortable with the uncomfortable activities. Okay? So ethics and morals, and second is challenging yourself with the comfort. Okay? All right, we're halfway now. Let's answer some more questions. Okay, by the way, let's answer this quickly from Justine. Hi, Sir Jonathan. I have been in the company for 6 years, but my title still has an assistant in it. Two things to ask, Justine. Number one, does this assume that you want to go beyond the assistant position? Do you want to become a manager, an associate? Second question is this a career path that you have discussed with your manager? Have you vocalized on your annual appraisal meeting, or even anytime now, that you have aspirations of getting into a bigger role, right? So that there is clarity that you can get out of the assistant position. Because some people are just happy with it, and maybe your manager thinks that you are also okay with it. If you don't vocalize it to the decision makers who are responsible in graduating you from assistant to associate, nothing will also happen. Okay? Now, if you got the confirmation that all that you can be in this company is an assistant, there is no space for promotion, there is no space for doing something different, meaning you're not even asking to be promoted, you're just asking to do something that's new or will excite you, then that means for the next 2 or 3 years, you have already been stagnating. It might be a reason for you to consider moving on to a different challenge. Okay? 6 years for me can be a good amount of time that you've already established your legacy. Okay? If you look at the data, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, look at the research. 3 years is your typical amount of time when someone can say that I've done a solid amount of work and that I've gained a good amount of experience in this company, such that my leaving was not premature, such that I've imparted my legacy. 1 year can be short. 2 years could be a bit half-baked. And again, I'm generalizing here because it can be different according to industries and positions, right? But if you look at the numbers, if you look at the data, you might also look at your own experience. 3 years is usually a solid amount of time when you can say, can I look for something else that's different? Am I not happy anymore? So if there is such a thing as a 7-year itch in relationships, I think it's around 3 years. For some people, it can even be as early as 2 years when it comes to managing their relationships with their companies. I'm also going to say, by the way, this can be dependent on age. The younger you are, the more impatient you are. So data would let us know that for millennials and Generation Z, after 18 months, they have a tendency to question if they should move on to a different company. But the older you get, in your latter 30s and 40s, you have other preoccupations in life. You have a family, you have other things to do, you have a side hustle business. Even if you want to quit immediately, you start telling yourself, what are the good things about the company that still makes me to stay? And so I will stay, because moving is such a costly thing to do. Right? Okay, let's answer this one more question. Ooh, I like this one. This is like a telenovela question. So let's answer this one. How will I tell my boss that I need to resign when she just somewhat promoted me? Maybe this was days or weeks ago, no? When she was just somewhat promoted me by transferring to a bigger role, and a pending offer is waiting. So when I say pending offer, by the way, it means it's just a matter of signing the contract, huh? It's not just because you're about to get interviewed. How will I deliver to her without hurting her and feeling betrayed? I call this, Aldrin, as tough love. Okay? So this is where you have to manage both your emotions, your brain, and your heart. As much as we owe a big part of our careers to our managers, who probably wanted the best for us, and that's why we got promoted. That's why you got promoted. You also have to consider that no one else will take good care of your career but you. So you have to weigh. If you keep on staying in this company but you got promoted, how much of professional and personal gain will that be vis-a-vis to the new company that you're going to join? So you have to weigh, which of the two companies do you think is going to propel you to greater heights? It seems like the way you phrase the sentence is you're likely leaning to take on the new position, because your question is, how will I deliver to her without hurting her? So this is not something that you do on an email or on a phone call. This is something that I would do one-on-one. It's a heart-to-heart talk. And I will say to my boss, I am very grateful. I'm very thankful to the all opportunities. I'm thankful that you've trusted me to the point that you think that I am worthy of getting promoted. However, I also think that there are other opportunities that unfortunately I will only be able to get if I move on to a new adventure, to a new journey. And this is where I'm moving towards to. I'm moving to company X, Y, and Z. Right? So the story should be about what's waiting for you on the other side of the road. It should not be about what I am not getting from my current company. Okay? And again, it's the formula is appreciate the person and then you move on. The person will get, for sure, they will feel bad. They will get hurt. But that's only going to be for a few days. It could only be for a few weeks, right? And that is manageable. Versus you stayed in the company just because you don't want to hurt someone's feelings. I think that's ridiculous, right? The person may feel good, but that could be a permanent effect to your life that you could have boost a better job opportunity if you moved ahead. Okay? So hurting other people's feelings will never be, I'd like to think, superior to the opportunity that you can get. And by the way, that opportunity will not only change your life, it can probably change your family's life, your future's life, whatever it is. As long as you say it in the right way while appreciating the person that you are leaving, go ahead and move on. Okay. All right. Some more questions. Let's answer this one. Let me get this out of the way because I think this one's a given. So Arnie on YouTube is saying, how can I ace my interview from the United States? It's a logistics account. Research the company as well. Yes. I'm going to spend 1 minute on this quickly. Never end a job interview without understanding what the company stands for, their values, and exactly what's their strategy, because these things are likely going to be asked anyway during the interview. It also sends a message to the other people interviewing you that you are deliberately joining it because you are aware of what you're about to enter. It's not just because you're after the money. Okay? All right, let's look at some more. Two more questions here. And I'm sorry, guys. I think my laptop's hanging now. I'm using an older laptop than what I'm supposed to be using for this session. Okay. Ooh, okay. Juan. Question from Juan. Do I need to? I don't know why, guys, but my hair is messy this afternoon. Nahihiya ako sa inyo. Okay. Because I just came from the gym before I entered this. Okay. Okay. What do you think of retention bonus? Attrition rate seems to be high on our team. Attrition meaning the number of people who are leaving the company. Okay. Retention rate is the number of people who are still in the company. And I was offered a retention bonus with a 2-year retention contract. I did not express any plans to resign though. You know, it's my first time to hear about a retention bonus. And obviously, I'm sorry, I'm going to be blunt about this. It's a bribe. It's basically saying that I don't want you to quit, but here's the money for you not to quit. Because I think that there is a possibility that you're going to quit the company. 2 years, I think, is a very long time. You'll never know that something might come in your way, such as a very good opportunity from another company. So I will definitely not sign it. The money and the cash could be a very lucrative offer, but I don't think it can replace the peace of mind and the possibility in the next 24 months that I can move on. Okay. Don't get me wrong. I think there's a good side to it. It says that the company does want to keep its people. I do think, however, that the best way to keep your people is not by giving them money only. It's also about taking good care of their career by giving them, opportunities, changing the roles, changing the scope, changing teams from time to time, giving them travel opportunities to learn something abroad, which I think a lot of us Filipinos and Asians would love to have. I think it's also about managing the culture of the company, that people respect each other. Those are the intangible elements that I think can be superior to giving money instead. Okay. So if I were to answer this one, nope. But only because I think, and I'm saying this from a place of privilege, because I think if I was working in a company, I think that I can be easily pirated by another company and I can haggle for a higher price, which means that my opportunity risk, my risk of getting transferred from an employer's perspective is higher. So I will never take on that offer. Okay. Okay. Everard from LinkedIn. I'm working in an interracial company. By the way, Everard, rather than saying interracial, you might want to consider using the word you can say a multinational company, or you can say, for example, a company with different backgrounds, because interracial just focuses that it's just an issue of race and therefore you're all different, right? Where my race isn't the dominant one, my manager is part of this group and I observe that he favors his own kind of people. Not going to challenge you. It does happen. I've seen it also many times. And it is part of being human. You have a tendency to favor people who are similar to you. We call that as homophily. Okay? And I just get small bits of tasks wherein I couldn't shine. How will I deal with it before considering to resign? So you'll notice my pattern by now. If you have an issue with your manager, and even if you tell me that your manager is not the type to listen, if this is your last blow, consider doing a one-on-one talk with your manager, right? A one-on-one talk meaning raise your issue and tell them that I think I'm a good player. I think I have an opportunity to contribute as much as I can, but I am not sensing that the projects that are given to me are projects that I can be engaged with and projects that can deliver a bigger bottom line for the company. Is it possible that I can request or I can volunteer for projects such as X, Y, and Z? So I'm going to be frank with my manager and tell them that. And I need them to tell me that I can be involved in those projects. Because sometimes when you confront your manager off the bat, without them being able to prepare, it really helps because it makes them tell the truth. So either your boss will tell you, sorry, this project is not for you because it's only intended for certain people. Sorry, because I don't think you are ready to take on the job. And by the way, if the manager tells you that, demand accountability and tell them, okay, if I am not ready yet, what should we do so I can be ready for that job? What exact skills do you think I am lacking so I can do better at it and show to you after a year that I am now ready for that job? Hold your manager accountable. These things are not going to happen unless you make that discussion with them. Okay. I'm going to say this, guys, because I'm sick and tired that every time I say this on social media, whether it's a post or a video, everyone keeps on telling me, but my boss is not the type to listen. Yes, a lot of them aren't. But if you're not going to do something about it, then you only have one other option left. And that is, don't tell it to them and just sit it out for another year or another 2 years. So if you look at the logic of the situation, you either go and be sad again or risk it by doing something different. That's the only way to play it. Okay. Okay. Gonna easily answer this. Does resignation look like a betrayal for bosses? Some bosses can take it that way, but I will always say, in your resignation letters, when you tender it, you're not required to tell the reason why. You simply say, I am tendering my resignation. Thank you for the opportunities. Okay? Because resignations are not for approval. They are for notification. No one can stop you from resigning. However, even if you're not writing the reason on your tendered paper, it will be great to still have that one-on-one heart-to-heart talk with your manager and tell to them why you are leaving. Usually, a good manager will do that discussion with you. Usually, they will invite you because they want to understand what exactly happened. A bad boss is not going to care. Okay? All right, let's look at, okay, let's get last two. I keep on saying last two. I'm really going to say this is the last two. So here's one more from Gabriel from LinkedIn. I'm a salesperson. One thing that made me leave is when I'm more than already with my quota, and yet no more commission for those sales. It will be in the company for any commission incentives. I find it infuriating. Let me rephrase. Gabriel, I think you're saying you've met your quota, but you still haven't received your commissions. Okay. The business ethics is disappointing. Is there anything we can do or tell them? It's one thing that motivates us, but I feel ginagatasan lang, or we're just being milked by the company. Okay. Gabriel, first and foremost, is it part of your contract where it's written that if you reach your sales quota, the commission is guaranteed by the company? That should be put into writing. And usually when you enter an employment contract, that is included in it. If it's not, even if it was promised verbally, it's hard to legally chase the owners or the management for it. We can say that they are morally wrong, but you cannot just simply raise this in a court. Okay? Unfortunately, that's how things work. Okay, so when I say if it's not a contract, has there been any proof that it's done in writing? Were you able to record a conversation? Okay, if it was part of the contract, I would again do a one-on-one discussion or involve HR, involve a management team and say, these are the things that you promised. And may I ask, why is it that they are missing? For situations like this, which by the way is very sensitive, I would recommend that you don't involve solo flight in this initiative. Try to gather a group of people who have the same issues, because this is the kind of situation wherein you have more strength in numbers. So try to gain a critical mass, invite them for a meeting, involve X number of people who have the same issues, and then negotiate. Okay? I hope that covers your answer. Okay. Let's get this as the last question from Dave. This is a good fitting question for something that it's a very ambiguous journey at the end of the day. You enter a company, you got good reviews on LinkedIn, you got bad reviews on glassdoor.com. And so you start getting confused which one is which. So Dave asked the question, what will be the deciding factor for choosing a company? Two things. Number one, in today's social media age, I think no matter how bad or good a company is, it's hard to hide it because everyone can easily say something about the company. So if you don't find enough information about the company, I think, I'll be biased about this, you're not researching enough. You're not researching enough down to the depths of Reddit, down to the photos and videos posted on the Facebook page or the LinkedIn accounts of that company. Or number three, I think in today's age, it's easy to look for a friend of a neighbor, of a mother's cousin who worked for that company. And even if it's just 3 people or 2 people, asking them how the company is should be an input if this company is worth pursuing. If you didn't even get through that route, I don't think you've done your homework right. And you should do that homework. You should never base your decision only on the website, only on the Facebook page. These things are all scripted. They will always put their best foot forward. Ask the real people. Try to research who can be that contact, who knows another person who worked in that company for X amount of years or months, who can tell it to you, right? Because you'll never know. I mean, there will be good companies. Multinational companies will always be known. If they're multi-awarded, if they're known for it, if they have been talked about across your batch. When I was in college, for example, food and manufacturing, fast-moving consumer goods have always been good companies. Silicon Valley companies has always been good companies. So you will find a way. And that was like 15 years ago, 20 years ago. In today's age, I mean, you go on TikTok or LinkedIn alone, you'll have an idea who these folks are. Okay. All right. We have a lot of questions. Thank you for joining our session for today. It's really heartwarming that you guys have participated, and I get your thoughts. There's so many people who still want to ask questions here. I will save them here. I'll find a way to message you privately, or please, if you really have something that's burning and itching, please do message me. It's an opportunity for me to be able to share my thoughts. Just make it quick and short so I will have an incentive to read your email, because some people just give me, an entire paragraph and I will not be able to answer them quickly. Okay. Before I end, can I just do a quick promotion if you guys are interested? Speaking of careers, and I'm showing it now on my screen, TikTok folks, you may not be able to see this, but folks on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So this coming Friday, we do have 3 workshops: leadership in hybrid work era, booster confidence, email etiquette, and business writing. If you are interested, we still have tickets available. You can go to our website, jonathanyabut.com. If you love listening to podcasts about career management, some of you may not be aware, we're now on season 2 of our From Grit to Great podcast, available on Spotify. Please do give it a listen. We guarantee it's loads of fun of discussion with my brother, who's also an entrepreneur himself. If you cannot attend our workshops live, if you happen to be outside the Philippines or outside of Metro Manila, we do have loads of recorded webinars that you can access, and they're all here. You can just go to our website, and that is jonathanyabut.com, and it comes with a free certificate and also an ebook. Right? So there you go. I hope we get to see you in our future session. We're going to do another live next week. We're going to announce it. Likely it's going to happen on a Wednesday again, just before we go for Holy Week for folks who are in the Philippines. And if you have any topics in mind, please let us know. I don't want to talk about quitting again as a second topic, so we might consider a different one, but it's still relevant for all of you gladiators in suits. Okay? All right. I hope you all have a great day. Good luck and stay safe. Bye, guys.